The backstage area was dimly lit, a single flickering bulb casting shadows across worn floorboards.
The boy stood motionless, clutching his old, scuffed guitar as if it were a lifeline. His hands shook slightly, not from fear, but from the weight of the moment, a lifetime of dreams condensed into a single performance. He closed his eyes, drawing in a shaky breath, and whispered under his breath, "For you, Mom." The words barely escaped his lips, fragile yet full of devotion. Around him, the sounds of the world seeped in, muffled applause and chatter from the audience beyond the heavy curtains, a chaotic yet distant storm that made his heartbeat pound all the louder in his ears. Each thump echoed through his chest, syncing with the tremor of his fingers on the guitar strings. He exhaled slowly, trying to steady himself, but the anticipation coiled tight in his stomach, a mixture of hope, fear, and something deeper, a longing to make every second of his life matter in this one fleeting performance. The camera moved slowly toward him, a dolly in capturing every detail, the glint of sweat on his brow, the faint tear tracing a path down his cheek, the worn frets of the guitar that had accompanied him through countless lonely nights. Warm light spilled over half his face, highlighting the tension in his jaw, while the other half remained in shadow, hinting at the uncertainty that still lingered within. He shifted his grip, fingers brushing over the strings as though feeling for courage. The world outside the curtain seemed to fade away, leaving only him, the guitar, and the promise he had whispered. The air was thick, the kind of quiet that precedes magic. Everyone, the audience, the judges, even the unseen crew, held their collective breath, unaware that the moment about to unfold would be remembered long after the lights dimmed.
Time seemed to stretch. One final inhale. One last glance at the guitar. And then, the music began. "If you want, I can expand the next scene," him stepping on stage and hitting the first note in the same cinematic, 300-word style, so it flows seamlessly from this moment. "Do you want me to do that?" The stage lights blazed to life, a single spotlight slicing through the darkness like a beacon. The boy stepped forward, his worn shoes whispering against the polished floor. The crowd, sensing the gravity of the moment, fell into sudden silence. Every chatter, every cough, every shuffle of feet seemed to vanish, replaced by an expectant hush that hung thick in the air. He raised his guitar, feeling its familiar weight settle against him, a comforting anchor amid the storm of nerves and adrenaline. The first chord rang out, trembling and haunting, as if the very air itself had been plucked. It resonated through the hall, raw and intimate, striking a chord deep within the hearts of those listening. The note lingered, vibrating against the walls, the ceiling, and the soul of every person present. Somewhere in the crow. He closed his eyes, letting the spotlight wrap around him like a fragile cocoon. The first words left his lips, trembling yet filled with an intensity that seemed too vast for someone so young. Each note carried the weight of late nights, lonely streets, and whispered promises, the kind only a mother's love could inspire. His voice wavered, raw and human, but there was a power beneath it that demanded attention. The audience leaned in subconsciously, caught in the gravity of the moment, their breath suspended between his notes. The judges, seated a few feet away, exchanged glances that spoke louder than words. One dabbed at the corner of an eye, trying to mask the glimmer of tears, but it was futile. Another sat forward, chest tight, heart unspooling with each line. They had heard thousands of performances, seen countless hopefuls, yet none had commanded silence quite like this. It wasn't just talent, it was honesty, vulnerability, the essence of life distilled into song. The camera moved in tight, capturing every flicker of emotion on his face. Sweat mingled with tears, glinting in the golden stage light, his jaw tight with concentration, lips quivering with emotion. The strings beneath his fingers responded to every nuance, every subtle shift of his energy, reverberating like a heartbeat across the silent hall. As he reached the iconic line, "You can check out any time you like," the entire room seemed to pause. The audience leaned forward, rapt, the words echoing in the hushed theater. Even the slightest cough would have broken the spell, yet no one dared move. The music was no longer background entertainment, it was confession, it was story, it was life itself spilling into the open. In that instant, emotion transcended technique, and the boy became more than a performer, he became a vessel for something timeless. The song was no longer his alone. It belonged to everyone who dared to listen, to feel, and to remember. "If you want, I can expand the next scene," the golden buzzer and confetti climax, into 300 cinematic words, making it the ultimate emotional payoff. Do you want me to do that next? The final note hung in the air, trembling, fractured, yet achingly perfect. It lingered for a heartbeat longer than seems possible, vibrating through the theater and into every soul present. Then, the sound of destiny itself, a judge's hand slammed down on the golden buzzer, the metallic clang echoing like a starting gun. In an instant, the quiet tension shattered into a storm of jubilation. Golden confetti erupted from the ceiling, swirling around him like sunlight caught in a whirlwind. Each piece glimmered, catching the spotlight and casting tiny flecks of light across the stage. The boy stood frozen, mouth slightly open, eyes wide, tears streaming down his cheeks as if the world had suddenly become too bright, too beautiful to comprehend. His trembling hands gripped the guitar tighter, the very instrument that had carried him herein. Backstage, the world had quieted. The roar of the audience, the flash of cameras, the thunder of applause, all had faded into a distant hum, like the echo of a dream receding at dawn. The boy sat slumped on the edge of a worn chair, golden confetti still tangled in his hair and dusting the shoulders of his jacket. His guitar rested across his lap, strings glinting in the soft, warm glow of the backstage lights. For a moment, he simply stared at it, tracing the worn frets with fingertips still trembling from the intensity of the performance. He whispered, almost to himself, "I did it, Mom." The words were fragile yet filled with triumph, carrying the weight of countless nights spent alone with music, countless moments of doubt and struggle. His voice was barely audible, yet it seemed to resonate with the very walls around him, mingling with the faint rustle of confetti and the distant, fading applause that trickled in from the auditorium. It was a quiet victory, intimate and profound, one that no cheers could ever fully capture. The camera lingered, soft focus capturing the subtle glow on his face, the damp strands of hair clinging to his forehead, the way his chest rose and fell with a still heavy heartbeat. The light seemed almost cinematic, wrapping him in a golden haze, making the moment feel suspended in time. The guitar hummed faintly as he plucked a soft, tentative chord, the notes echoing softly in the empty backstage, a tender coda to the storm he had just weathered. On the screen, words appeared, gentle but powerful. From pain, came perfection. Hotel California reborn. In that quiet, confetti-dusted room, the boy was more than a performer. He was a story of perseverance, emotion, and raw, unfiltered artistry, a memory that would linger long after the stage lights dimmed. If you want, I can compile all 5 expanded scenes into a full 1,500-word cinematic script, so it reads seamlessly from backstage nerves to triumphant aftermath. Do you want me to do that?